Good. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Austin. All right, so now we will move on to the approval of minutes. We have April 11th. We have public minutes that we need approved. So do I have a motion for the April 11th public meeting minutes? First by David.
Second.
Second by Kearney. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. That motion passes 7-0. We will move on to the approval of the non-public meetings from April 11th. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
First by Kearney. Second by Jason. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions? None. All right, motion passes 7-0. With that, it looks like we have some visitors from Gilbert H. Hood Middle School. So I'll pass it over to Austin to do some introductions, and then we'll let you guys get started.
Okay, I just need to do one introduction. I see the principal, Miss Kim Carpentino. And assistant principal, Miss Melanie Curran.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. We're so excited to be here to show off a little bit of Gilbert H. Hood Middle School. We're going to start off. My name is Kim Carpentino, the principal. I've been there for about 5 years as a principal. I'm going to start off with Ms. Curran having a little information for you that we thought would be good to share with you tonight because we have an audience with you and an audience with people on TV. So I'm going to let her take it away for a moment.
Good evening, everyone. So we just wanted to recognize a couple of our amazing teachers before we get started with the real show. And so we've had a couple of teachers really stand out this year and receive awards that we thought it was very important to share with all of you and with the community. We have Mr. Eric Warner, who is a Navy veteran, and Eric was both nominated and awarded the VFW Citizenship Education Teacher Award for 2023, so we want to congratulate Eric on that. I should say Mr. Warner is a 6th grade math teacher. We also want to recognize Mr. Derek Dane, who is also a fellow math teacher in 8th grade. Mr. Dane has been nominated by the state of New Hampshire for teacher. He was nominated by us to the state of New Hampshire as a Teacher of the Year 2024 nominee. We are still waiting to hear the results for that. And then we have the one and only physical education teacher, Mrs. Amara Brown. Mrs. Amara Brown was awarded the CHART Award Certificate this year, the New Hampshire Governor's Council on Physical Activity and Health. They were pleased to recognize Amara this year with the CHART Award. So congratulations to Amara Brown.
All right. Thank you, Melanie. And now I'm going to bring up our volunteer of the year. So this is Stacy Williams coming up. And I'm going to say a few words about Stacy. Now, normally I would write a lot of things down, but I do not need to write anything down because I've been working with Stacy for 5 years. And you probably wonder why. It's been a lot of years. Although she has had children in the building for 5 years, it is surprising right now. She has no children at Gilbert H. Hood Middle School. They're all at Pinkerton, both her son and daughter at Pinkerton. However, she has made a commitment to stay on as the PTSA president for us because we had no president this year, which is amazing for her to still stay committed to Gilbert H. Hood Middle School. And I would say that we have a strong PTA and have for 5 years because of Stacy, and she has done amazing work for us. And sometimes you see her, like this afternoon for Teacher Appreciation Day, being the one person in the building that comes in to give us a chocolate fountain in the main office with all kinds of fruit and snacks and things to dip in chocolate, and she's all alone getting that done. And it just warms my heart because she has no kids in our building and she's still dedicated to us at Gilbert H. Hood Middle School. And tomorrow I'm meeting her at 9 o'clock right? 9 o'clock? Okay. 9 o'clock to help her at Market Basket to bring in lunch for our teachers. So Stacy does amazing things for us at Gilbert H. Hood Middle School and has for so many years. And I cannot thank her enough for all that she's done for us throughout these years. Not only has she provided the PTSA with leadership, but she has been dedicated to everything about our school. No matter what I need, I know I can talk to Stacy and get help from her, even if it's just herself coming in and helping me. She is like just an amazing person and so generous. So thank you so much for all your years with us.
Certificate of Appreciation, Volunteers in Education, Stacy Williams for valued service at Gilbert H. Hood Middle School. Thank you for all you do. We greatly appreciate it.
All right, and now it's time for us to bring up our keynotes, our students who are going to be putting on our play called Descendants. And I'd like to bring up the two directors, which are Katie Gifford and Kim Parsons. So come on up and you guys can do your thing.
Good evening. I asked Mrs. Carpentino one day, I said, do you think that we could, come to the school board and present to all of them? And she's like, well, as a matter of fact, our day is this. So it all just worked out. We're so proud of these kids from January when we auditioned. They have come huge leaps and bounds. We have 23 on the cast, 30 on our crew. Our performances are next weekend. It is $10 at the door. We have 2 or 3 performances, one on Friday night and then 2 on Saturday at 1 and 7. And we really appreciate all of the work that the parents have put in because we couldn't do it without them. But these kids have put in tremendous amount of work. So we just want to give you a little sneak peek of how hard they've worked. This is our main cast, our main principals, I guess you want to say. And we're going to let them take it away, and we hope you enjoy. Yeah. 2 other things. Thank you, Katie. It is cash only at the door. And the 2 songs we're doing are, remind me. Evil Like Me, and then Chillin' Like a Villain. Thank you.
I was once like you, my child, slightly insecure. But I put my heart, I use my head. Time you learn what deep. Wanna be evil like me? Don't you wanna be mean? Don't you wanna make mischief your daily routine? Where you can spend your life attending to the poor. But when you're evil, doing less is doing more. Don't you wanna be ruthless and rotten and mad? Don't you wanna be very, very good at being bad? So mean, aren't I? There's mean and there's truly evil. Oradon is the big leagues, kid. Time to step it up. I have tried my whole life long to do the worst I can. Clawed my way to victory, built my master plan. Now the time has come, my dear, for you to take your place. Promise me you'll try to be an absolute disgrace.
I guess.
Don't you want to be evil like me? Don't you want to be cruel? Don't you want to be nasty and brutal and cool? Then when you grab that wand, that's when your reign begins. Who wants an evil queen without a sack of sins? Don't you want to be heartless and hardened as stone? Don't you want to be finger-licking evil to the bone?
I do, but
what? This is not for us to ponder. This is preordained. You and I shall rule together, freedom soon regain. Mistress of the universe, powerful and strong. Daughter, hear me, help me, join me. Won't you sing along? Now we're gonna be evil. It's true, never gonna think twice. And we're gonna be spiteful. Yes, spiteful. That's nice. Once you've made certain that our future's safe and sure, this mother-daughter act is going out on tour. If you want to be evil and awful and free, then you should thank your lucky star that you were born the girl you are, the daughter of an evilicious queen like me.
oh, that's gonna be.
Don't look at the screens.
Oh, that's gonna be hard. No.
Not going looking like that. Tell you something you can really trust. Body's got a wicked side. I know you think that you can never be. Watch and learn so you can get it right. Drag your feet. You need to nod your head. You need to lean back. Slip through the cracks. You need to not care. Oh, you need to not stare. You need a whole lot of help. You just have to not be yourself. You gotta be cool. Let me show you how. You break the rules. I can show you how. And once you catch the feeling, you'll be chillin', chillin'. Oh, chillin' like a villain. Chillin', chillin' like a villain. Chillin', chillin' like a villain.
Open the portal.
On whose authority?
Mine, but keep it quiet.
Look at Benny boy, being bad.
One portal to the Eye of the Lost coming right up.
Whoa!
Place is in terrible living conditions. It needs our help.
Lay low. You know what people would do if they knew who you were?
Say hello and shake my hand.
Decapitate you. You've held our island down for decades.
Not me. My parents.
Close enough. And what do we do with the wand? He'll hear you. Wait.
Cousin saw you think to see you.
No, stop. Just stop. You draw attention when you act like that. Let me teach you how to disappear. You'll not you will lose a fight to an alley cat.
start being what I'm not. Well, if you don't, you're gonna get us caught.
Here's why we gotta stay low key. Show us how bad you can be.
Like this?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
this?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I got this. Let's go. I'm ready to rock this. And I ain't gonna thank you for my help. I think I'm the worst of myself.
Wanna be cool? Let me show you how. You break the rules. I can show you now. And once you catch this feeling,
Yeah, once you catch this feeling,
you'll be chillin', chillin'.
Oh,
Chillin' like a villain.
chillin',
Chillin' like a villain.
chillin',
Chillin' like a villain. Hey! Chillin' like a villain. Hey! Chillin' like a villain, villain, villain.
So thank you so much. You'll be getting an email from me. We'd like to invite all of you on the school board to come and see the production next weekend. So thank you so much.
All right. That was great. Yeah, always invite us. We love to see these previews. It'll be exciting. Hopefully we can get out there, and hopefully Derry will support these young students and great performers. Thank you, Kim and Melanie, for coming by and recognizing some great teachers as well, and Stacy for the hard work that you've done at Hood as well. So thank you guys so much. Do we want to? I mean, I was going to say take a recess, but I think everyone's kind of cleared out, so I don't think so either. So then, so we will move on to school updates. We have Stella here from Next, who I won't steal your thunder.
So I told myself this meeting, I usually come with my laptop and my notebook prepared with stuff that's happened over the past month. But today, I told myself I'm not going to, because today is Next 10-year anniversary, and I did come from the party. Now I'm here, but they're currently still holding the party. They're probably doing the raffles right now. But so I went there at 5, and a lot of people were there. I'd say probably 100 to 150 people were there. We were all there as a community talking about the past 10 years and how everybody has grown. Miss Whalen got to take a picture with her original advisory from 2013. It was pretty cool to witness. But I didn't plan much to talk about the last month, besides we're getting near to the end of the school year. We are on the last module. That's very exciting. But over the past 10 years, we are on the last module. That's very exciting. But over the past 10 years, Next has definitely stuck to its word, and the school of choice and the charter school in its all is like really, really nice. The past 10 years, they've really helped students grow and become themselves and work as individuals to become real people into the real world, to get their jobs and have good skills and like proper learning and everything like that. But I've been at Next for 2 years, almost 2 years. It was definitely the right choice for me. I've grown in a community that supports me, and I believe I'm friends with everybody at school, to my knowing, but I am involved with the community. Our community is really nice. We involve everybody. We support everybody. We help everybody become who they are. But yeah, we're celebrating 10 years. Oh, I did want to give a personal shout out to 3 people who have been there for the exact 10 years, which is Emily Whalen, Andrew Bankston, and Karen Woodis, who the school would have not became what it is now if it weren't for them 3 as well.
Excellent. That was a great update. Congratulations on 10 years.
I'm going to just jump in and say it was great to be there celebrating. It is such a benefit to the town of Derry and to the kids here to have that choice. And I am just so excited because you know that it's going to continue to go on and it's going to be here for decades to come. And I think that's fantastic. So great job.
All right. Well, moving on, we will bypass the Pinkerton Academy update and we will move on to the discussion about the 2023-2024 school board goals, which is attachment B. So for those of you that are listening or watching, a couple Saturdays ago, the school board, along with Joe and Austin and Jane, all got together and we put together what we feel are we started putting together some goals for really the next year or for the remainder, all of this year. And so we haven't talked since then. We'd worked on, creating a goal, objectives, and then we were working on identifying the evidence. And so that's where we left off with the meeting. And so wanted the rest of the board to come back with, prepared and give some evidence. I know there's quite a bit here, and while I was doing this, I was like, there might be a lot of redundancy of these, but we can certainly kind of go through these quickly and try and go through these, or I don't know, David and I can collect the inputs that you guys have. But I think it's still worth, just checking everyone's temperature and at least coming to hopefully a finalized list of goals and objectives, and then we can come back and finalize the evidence that we have along with it as well. But before we get into that, is there anything that anybody wants to either potentially add or change to any of these goals? I know I've had a few conversations with different people about their thoughts on them, so I don't know. I feel like we did a lot of good work those 2 Saturdays ago. Thanks to Austin and Joe and Jane for kind of, I guess, guiding us in the right direction and being good guardrails as well. So, but yeah, I kind of open up the floor to you guys to kind of fill in the blanks and let me know what you guys want to see as a next step as we get close to finalizing these. I think I would like to have these finalized by the end of May. I mean, maybe the beginning of June, but so that we can start working on them. And some of them we should start working on obviously right away. But yeah, I'll open up the floor to the rest of you guys.
One thing I'd add, Jonathan, it may make sense to just read through the 6 goals that we put out just for folks who are watching if they don't have the attachment in front of them, just so they kind of see where we're at.
Sure. All right. So we'll just go in order, and I'll just list the goals and objectives that we have each of those. So for the first goal, so communicate effectively with families, staff, students, and other stakeholders. And the 2 objectives we have listed there. So first objective underneath goal 1 is to implement monthly informal and in-person listening sessions. The second is to revise the district website to simplify and update information. Goal number 2, to provide high-quality learning opportunities to all students. The objectives being to continue to develop, communicate, and support a pre-K through grade 8 plan for competency-based curriculum, and to assess the social and emotional well-being of all students. Goal number 3, to support staff by fostering relationships and providing appropriate resources. The objectives here are to evaluate the ESSER spending to inform future curriculum and instructional decisions, and to increase school board member engagement at school events and highlight staff achievements regularly at board meetings. Goal number 4, to provide for the educational needs of the school district in a fiscally responsible manner. This includes refining the budget process and advocating for additional funding sources to support maintenance of facilities. Goal number 5, to execute a plan for district facilities. That includes determining which school we will close as part of the reconfiguration process, and then create a project plan for facilities. And then finally, the last goal that we have is to develop a 5-year strategic plan. And we only have one objective here, which is to issue an RFP to contract with a facilitator. Thank you for that suggestion. So yeah, any thoughts, questions, additions, addendums, anything that anybody would like to? I mean, I guess I throw it out there. Do we want to discuss the evidence here and try and come up with the finalized evidence for each one of these? I think that might be a little time consuming, but I mean, I'm open to hearing whatever other people have as well.
I thought, and I don't do that very often, I don't do it very well, but I thought that, and I had the impression that we were going to exchange the information we had so we could look at each other's and then kind of brainstorm it. Is that still part of the plan?
So that, I mean, we can do that. So I'm sure we can have copies made and kind of discuss this. And there was an idea thrown out there of having another meeting for us to finalize these. So that's something else that we could consider. But yeah, I mean, I like I said, my goal, my expectation would be that we have these finalized, maybe by next board meeting. If not, then maybe the first one in June, so that we can actually start working on these. Because I feel like we have, like, again, really specific, I know we talked about this, measurable, achievable, time, they have timelines and things like that. So we have them. We just need this last little piece of evidence. So if people want to, I guess we could make copies and share them and then come back to the next meeting. The logistics part of that is hard, obviously, because we can only meet
I mean,
here or
if I
in
may,
workshops.
I feel like some of it is like the evidence of revising our website is simply getting someone to update our website and doing it. I don't know why we need another meeting to talk about it when a lot of this stuff is just like implementing a monthly information to in-person sessions. Like a lot of the actual evidence is doing it. So I'm not really sure why we need another meeting to approve it.
So I'm okay with giving the information to Jonathan, and we can come up with what people brought up. I'm okay with that. I don't think we need another meeting as well. I think you're right, Kenny. So I'm okay with that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the evidence is basically just what we need to do to accomplish these things. The hard part was hammering out the actual goals and objectives. And, yeah, I think we each put something together here. And, yeah, if you want to collect them all and consolidate them.
I worry about getting bogged down in the process, and we already filled out the paperwork that Joe's kind enough to send around. And if there was anything that was like way off base that we're way far apart from, then we can maybe bring that up in non-public next week before we bring it to the board to approve.
Yeah, so I mean, that would not be a possibility. There's only certain subjects that we can cover in non-public, so this would not be one of them. So yeah, that again, it's really just finalizing, these last pieces of evidence, right? And so I certainly don't want to be the one that says, oh yeah, we just need to do it and who's responsible. So I just wanted to have it as collaborative as we could without us being able to meet whenever or correspond whenever we can as well. So just logistically can sometimes be difficult. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I think if you want me to consolidate these, I can come back to the next board meeting and say, hey, here we go, or send it to you guys before, and then we can kind of.
Are you asking more like what committees each of these responsibilities should be going to, and like more like who's going to be tasked with or responsible for it, or what do you mean by evidence, I guess?
Yeah, so when we left last meeting, we had a goal and we had objectives. We did not identify the evidence piece, which was the 3 boxes that are in gray here, right? So the 3 questions that were what will be created or accomplished that will be evidence we are working toward to achieve this objective. Question 2, who will be responsible for this task and what is the deadline for this task? So I know I have guesses or estimates and who should be responsible and what we're trying to achieve. And I think we probably all have pretty similar things, but there could be something that, maybe you had or David had or Paul had that might be a little bit different. And we want to make sure, we include that as well. So I just want to make sure everyone's input was heard and that we kind of come to some sort of a consensus on this as well.
One thing I'd add is just with regards to the evidence and the time bound and the actual how we're gonna the rubber meets the road is not to get too far into the weeds on each specific, so we're not kind of spinning our tires on each goal, and things are truly actionable. So I think if we've either all submit or can submit what we kind of hashed out on our own, like you said, there'll be some similarities and there'll be some things that are off, maybe on their own. Obviously, I think that if something's similar, 3, 4, 5, or more of us, it's probably a pretty tangible or valid point. If something's way off base, but seems like there might be some potential to gain traction there, it's probably worth discussing. But I think if we keep it simple and have 1 or 2 pieces for each, then we know we're all working on the same thing, paddling in the same direction, and it's easier for us to take action against each of the goals when we think back as to if we were successful or if we are not successful at the end of the year.
I would agree with that.
Goal that we don't have on here, that I think we should have on here, is to successfully negotiate the assistance contract.
Okay. Sorry, I was just writing that down. So we do have that coming up. That, I would be fine with adding that. I think, an objective would be facilitating that with them. I could certainly add that to the list. But yeah, so I guess the question is do you guys want to just pass in the things that you guys have or submit what you guys have and then come back at next meeting and I can maybe have a finalized list of all these things? Okay. I can add, I'll add an objective to that. Any other goals that people want to include or change?
Can you just clarify what the goal was that you wanted to add, Brenda, what it was for?
Successfully negotiate the assistance contract so that we get it done. And it's actually something the board can do. I feel like a lot of the goals that we have are not attainable by the board by itself. That's something that the board can get done and should get done. Where a lot of the goals go back to staff, like the website. We're not going to build the website. Somebody has to do that, whether we have staff or whether we choose to hire somebody to do that. So I think we have things that we can do, and we should pay attention also to the things that we can accomplish successfully. That's all.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The admin's included in the ASME negotiations as well. So we do a lot of these things in conjunction. Even I know the school website is one of the things that we're looking to have updated. I think that is going to direct some people in the administration to do certain things. But I think it leads to the overall goal of ours, which is to communicate effectively with families, staff, students, and other stakeholders. So part of that is, I think that, I think some of these are going to inform the administration or the district staff through Austin. But I think overwhelmingly a lot of these are things that, we should be aspiring to as a board as well. Any other changes or that anybody would like to see? Additions? Okay. All right. Well, I will grab your guys' stuff after the meeting, and then I will work with David to finalize those. Sound good? All right, great. All right. One other, actually, kind of in conjunction with this. So one of these goals that we have is obviously communicating effectively. We did talk about doing starting the informal in-person listening sessions in May. Since we are at the beginning of May, we should probably schedule one of those. So I know we talked about doing these potentially during the day or an evening. So first, I would ask, so I think we talked about having 2 people to go to these. So do we have any volunteers that want to do these in May?
I don't mind doing the May one.
Okay. So we've got
I'm
Kearney
happy
for
to
one. Okay. Do you guys
pair
have?
up with Kearney and take
Okay.
care of May.
Perfect.
Maybe like not Mother's Day, obviously, but like maybe after Mother's Day. Do you want to just connect separately and try to find a day and then come next meeting with the date?
Yeah, I would say probably that last week before Memorial Day, you and I can connect and
Perfect.
button down a time.
So
Talking about a May.
yeah, I was gonna say I would say let's hash this one out tonight, and then I can start putting a plan together for June and July, at least a couple dates out there, and just pairing two people together, and yeah, but yeah, I would say tonight if we're gonna do one, like we're 2 weeks away from that, right?
Would we want it? This mic change is throwing me. Would we want it to be on a weekday?
I would say I think weekdays generally work
Yeah,
best.
maybe like a Wednesday.
Okay.
So maybe Wednesday the 17th we'll probably want to do it after school or
I would suggest maybe like
right.
the 4:30 to 5:30 range.
Yeah.
So give some people that at least an hour. If people are commuting home, they can still get there by 5:30 maybe, or maybe even 5 to 6.
And do we just want to do it at the public library?
So that's I mean, I think we can kind of rotate where we do it, wherever you guys want to do it, the library or Coffee Factory.
I mean,
or
I
Marion
can reach out to the
Parish.
library and see if we can get a room. I'm sure that they would have no issue renting out a room.
So the 17th is the National Junior Honor Society here. So I'll
good
be
flag.
attending that at 6. So I'm good.
How about the
6th?
24th? It's a week late. The week later, the 24th.
That gives us some time to actually get the information out as well.
That was my thought too. So like 5 to 6. Later than that, 6 to 7.
I'd say 6 at the earliest.
I mean, if we plan it out in advance, I can do later. So I can do 6 to 7 or 5 to 6 or whichever you guys feel like.
All right, let's start with the first one, 6 to 7. The 24th works for both of you guys.
Good for me.
Okay, and
Maybe moving forward, you rotate it. Like 1 month it's in the evening, 1 month
yes,
it's in the afternoon.
yeah, we talked about that as well. Yeah.
Maybe a weekend day too.
Okay, so Wednesday. So for anyone listening, Wednesday, May 24th, from 6 to 7 p.m., Jason and Kearney will be hosting an in-person listening session. I will be. We talked about this, and we will be listening. If there's questions, we may not be able to have answers to those questions because we operate as a board holistically. We can't. I'm sure we could probably give some opinions or things like that, but we want to hear what you guys have to say, and we want to take this opportunity to listen to any input that you guys have. Right now, should we?
Tentatively say the library.
I was gonna say, tentatively say the library.
And if library are listening, please. I'll call them.
Okay. Yes, sir.
One of the things that I recorded here on my form for that specific objective is should we have a mechanism that's uniform and somewhat formalized so that the communications that are gathered out there at these meetings will come back to the board so that they're shared with everyone, and if there's something that we need to make an adjustment on, as opposed to just meeting and then relying upon conversations amongst us. That's, I think, important that if we communicate, we receive the communications back into the entire board. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I would hope
We
that
can create like a Google form maybe that we fill out at the end of the session and just hit the top notes of what people brought up, how many people attended, what was the commentary, and then send that, and then that will be sent to the whole group.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can create a form that says, "Hey, here's the topics that were discussed," and then you guys, whoever's there, would write down those topics and then report back to the board at that next school board meeting.
But have it all within one form so that each time it's being filled out in that same process.
Yeah, the difficulty there is what constitutes a meeting and what does
Yeah, I
not
know, that's
constitute
what
a
I was
meeting.
worried
So I
about,
think
too.
I think we would have to create a template that we share, but we can't keep it somewhere that we can all communicate at simultaneously. So collaboration is difficult with some of the parameters that are set up. But yeah, I think I can email out we can email out a form to say, hey, use this form when you guys go to these sessions. And I think as we're doing these, I think they will get more formalized as we go on. So hopefully we can, maybe we have, once we do it at the Derry Public Library, if we say, hey, the third Wednesday of every month, can we do these here? Great. And then, or every other month or something like that. So I think this is definitely a work in progress. But I'm glad we have the first one scheduled. So once again, Wednesday, May 24th from 6 to 7 p.m., Derry Public Library. All right. All right. Let's see. Any other goals that wanted to? Yeah, I think that's good. All right. So now we'll move on to the 23-24 school board meetings agenda item. So last week, was it last week? I think it was last week. I was at I was planning on talking about this during other business, but the election subcommittee meeting, and Dave Karen, prior to the meeting, said, hey, have you guys ever thought about hosting your meetings at the municipal center? And I said, no, I didn't realize it was necessarily an option, but I said, that's something I can bring to the board, and if that's something that, would make sense, along with not just the place, but the potential scheduling of scheduling our board meetings. I know it can sometimes get difficult we have school vacations that sometimes mess with our schedules, but just wanted to throw that out to the board to see if there was any interest in potentially doing that. I believe they said there would be no additional costs. They had a separate meeting room for us so that we could do our non-public meetings beforehand as well. So I said, I'll throw it out there and see what the board thinks. This is not something we have to decide tonight. I know Austin and Joe, I think, are working on the calendar for the school board meetings for next year. So it was more of, hey, if we're going to be meeting and discussing those in the next couple weeks, then probably want to make sure they have that information so that they can schedule accordingly with the municipal center. So anybody's thoughts?
It is something that's been discussed before.
Okay.
And we actually did meet there several times. And we came back to our schools because the general consensus was this is our space. This is where our families are comfortable and our students are comfortable performing. I know I did have a conversation with Owen about the sound that we have, and he commented, which is something I didn't think of because that's not my job, or that's not where I live. But he talked about the different textures and how sound bounces off of the floor and the ceiling and the desk. And there have been times when we've also had our meetings at Hood Library where they have carpet and different sound barriers or sound, whatever that correct term is. So if that's the reason, maybe that's something that we could also consider, moving our meetings to that library, which is a big enough space, and doesn't have the hard floor, and I guess we'd still have hard tables, but just a suggestion.
Yeah, that was part of, he offered it. I said, well, I know we've had people that have mentioned the audio issues that we've had, and so I think these are helping. This is good timing. What was that? Yeah, that's yeah. So just I wanted to get everyone's temperature, see what their thoughts were. I know maybe think about it over the next couple weeks, and then we can kind of come to a consensus at the next meeting. But yeah, I know AV or audio video issues. I agree. There is something to be said for being here and being in the schools and making, making it more I guess accessible, I guess I don't know if that's the right word, but having our staff come here, having parents come here, having students come here is more comfortable in a school. I also know that the flip side of that is, we are kind of the business side of the school board, or the school side of things, and so these are business meetings, and having it more formalized might make them run more smoothly. I don't know. I don't know
I'm
that,
curious
but-
if you have done it out of there before. What was the community access available? Is it a big enough room for multiple people to come and sit in, or what is the access to the general public?
You mean at the municipal center?
Yeah, yeah. Like the room that they have.
It would be the same room that the
Okay.
town council
Okay.
uses.
Okay. Cool. I just
No
wasn't sure
different than
what
this.
room it
Actually,
was.
This is bigger, probably.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably bigger. I don't know about seating, how many people we could, I mean, obviously, if we filled this up with chairs, definitely. There are some, like, I just sat down there last week, and they have screens there, which display things on the back as well. So, like, there wouldn't be the need for 4 different TVs in here. It's just, it's a different look and feel. And so I personally do not have a strong preference one way or the other, but the audio stuff is something that, I think there's been enough noise around, which is no pun intended, enough noise around that it's something maybe we start considering a little bit more. But I don't know if things keep working like they are tonight, then we may not have that issue.
To address these issues, we just invested $12,000 into rebuilding that device over there. That's why it sounds so nice. I just wanted to put that out there. Now we can move that over to the Gilbert Hood Middle School. We can put that anywhere we want, but we do not anticipate future audio issues.
Thank you. That's great. All right. Anybody have any strong opinions one way or the other?
I prefer our buildings, and we had a whole bunch of children here performing for us. And we have them once a month at least, students coming in and staff coming in. So I prefer here, or one of our buildings.
Sure.
I would also prefer that we keep it in one of our schools, unless like this was the only option. If there was no other option than the town and the municipal center, I think that it should be in a school.
Okay. All right.
I like the idea. A more appropriate place to have a board meeting that runs a business, and this is a business like that. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in?
So I was when you first mentioned it to me, I was really in favor of it, great deal. But now, I mean, I hear the arguments, I get it. So I can go either way, I think. But I will say, Brendan makes good points, and the guy Michael makes good points. So I can go either way. I'm not strongly for or against either one.
I just don't see what the advantage is. What would we gain by having the municipal center? It's not any more accessible. It's not a building that's part of the district.
They get the staffing, so we wouldn't have to set up this room every meeting.
Yeah, I know we
custodians.
talked. We talked about that.
That's definitely a positive, I would think. But I don't know if that outweighs the other things. So.
I was just mentioning that kids can come there as well, but I don't have a preference either way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to just change for change's sake either. I agree. I think I certainly would like to hear from the administration on if you guys feel strongly one way or the other. Or, I mean, also like the other thing is, I think as we leave this discussion tonight, please continue to have conversations with everyone in the public. And I mean, again, if it, let's just say, I'm not saying this is the case, but let's just say people would say, oh yeah, I don't have any kids in school, so I'd be more comfortable at showing up at the municipal center, or I can't always make it to whatever. Maybe there are reasons, right? I don't know if there are, but I have not heard that. No one has said that to me. So, but That is also a truth as well. But yeah, so if anyone from the or Austin, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I mean, yeah, you guys would be able to tell us again. Obviously, if we're talking about the benefits of doing it at the municipal center and any associated costs that we have to doing it here, you guys would be able to give us kind of the nuts and bolts on that as well.
So from
Definitely appreciate the offer.
what's
I
that?
think that I think it was a great offer and appreciate that a lot.
I would agree with that as well. Devil's advocate, we're trying to make some connections with the town. We're trying to get more on board with both sides, seeing the other people's views. And sometimes I think maybe if we're there and we're just from being there, we may be interacting a little bit more. Another thing that I would actually give an opinion on would be I like the idea that if we stay in the schools once and for all, we move over the fact that it's air conditioning at Gilbert H. Hood, the fact that they've got carpets, and now that Ms. Carpentino has moved those shelves out of the middle, there's a big open space. So if the school board does decide to stay in the schools, I think Jonathan's office is right upstairs. Technology department is right there. Cliff, tell me if you and the tech department disagree with that. So my strong opinion is if you decide to stay in the schools, I like the idea of making the move. Maybe we could do it this summer. Number one, it's air conditioning. Did I say that yet? But a little bit more time to maybe make that happen. But I don't know about logistics. I don't know where these are stored. I don't know if they have a special space there. Would they have a space at Gilbert H. Hood? Do we need these? Do we use something? So that's just a thought that we could look into. And then the municipal center, is it the fact that it wouldn't cost any money? Is it a little bit, well, Jonathan doesn't have to come here every day and set up, and when we go late, the custodians don't have to stay after 10 o'clock to break everything down and so forth. So there's some of those logistics. We've been doing it for decades with those logistics. The only thought that I had from a positive of moving over there is rubbing some more shoulders and seeing people a little bit more often, and maybe some of the townspeople are more willing to stop in. Just a thought.
The only thing I would add is, that would guarantee that we wouldn't have town council and school board in the same night. Whether that, based on the attendance, that doesn't really mean much, but it is a thing, because, I would like to go to see town council's budget meetings or whatever, and I think we would have sessions. So those are kind of things that, you can think of. It's just another thought, but.
No, I would agree with you on that basis, and I do think it's something to consider, but like I said, I don't have really a huge opinion one way or the other.
My final thought on it is that, we're reminded, and justifiably, we're reminded frequently that, that we are funded by the entire town, whether students are from a family that's paying taxes or not. And that's a constant reminder that we're always before us. And I think conversely, this underscores the fact that when people pay taxes to the town, the facilities are funded by the same pool of money that we use, and it's nice to see that it's not compartmentalized, and that we kind of want to try to do, I think, do away with that whole thought about us and them, and having people look at this budget and that budget and compare, because there's apples and oranges. There's not the same thing at all. And I think that what Austin said, I think, is worthy of note, that to have that a little bit more of homogeneous relationship, and the face of the school board being, as more part of the town than just being isolated. But that's.
Yeah, and I think good discussion so far. So let's think on it, talk with your neighbors, community members, and then think about it next, or for the next board meeting. We can either, I don't want to say do nothing. We can keep them here, or if anybody wants to move them to Hood or to the municipal center, we can have that discussion at that point as well. Then, Austin, anything else that we would need other than a meeting place for you guys to finalize that schedule?
Yeah, we could, we can come up with the schedule that we would normally have with the second and fourth Tuesdays, which I do believe, no matter where we have it, are open. And if a decision was made to move down there, we'd have to just check through to make sure, there might be a change. That's potentially coming back. The calendar's potentially coming back to you guys, because when we did do the election, the thought was that the March, we have possibly in one of the schools, maybe two, so we may need to change what we do on the second Tuesday in March, whether or not we look to do something different, whether we keep the schools open, close them, do something remote. But we'll wait for they're not going to make a decision, I think, till September or something like that. So I might be coming back with the 23-24 calendar pretty early in the year, but it would just be for a specific day or two.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. That solves that. Move on to facilities discussion. So I will. Yeah, that's right. I did skip that one. We're gonna move to the 2020-2023 New Hampshire School Board Association call for resolutions. Give me 1 second here. So if you remember last year, was that last year that we did? So last year we submitted a resolution asking the New Hampshire School Board to lobby the state and federal delegates for funding of any student for breakfast and lunches. I have not seen an update on that recently, but hopefully we're not the only people that are doing that. But that was something that the New Hampshire School Board Association did adopt, so they are doing that. So this year, I do not have the on my phone real quick. Give me a second.
I'll just say that I think it was a great resolution. I was very happy to see that the School Board Association adopted it. And we just talked last year about when this came out, to bring it to, and I know you guys get this as well, but to bring it to you guys so we could start thinking sooner, because I know Brenda whooped it up at the 23rd hour. But this way, just to put it out there that this is coming again, they're looking for them, so that whether it's now or in upcoming meeting or something, you guys can talk about whether or not you think there should be another resolution, so it won't be so have to get it done overnight type of thing.
And I'll give credit to Jessica, who came up with the idea, and Erica, who also, the three of us helped to write it once I got the stuff down and finalize it. So, but it was Jessica's idea.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have any topics top of mind. This is one of the things that I'm not good at, is the idea thinking. But I would say I don't know, Austin, Joe, Jane, Laura, anything that we can do as a school board to try to advocate for these things, I think is always good. So we'd love your input. I know, Brenda, you work, or you're part of the New Hampshire School Board Association, so I don't know if you have any
There think it's important to look at what's already in resolution and what's in practice so that we don't spend a lot of time, not that it's not valuable, but don't spend a lot of time writing something that's already there. I'd rather have something like the food insecurity that wasn't there, and it took a little bit to get it on the floor, thanks to Jonathan, but it happened and it was supported. So I think those are the things that are important. Just beware what's there, and they're all on the website.
Yeah, so for you guys that are new, or just New Hampshire School Board Association website, we'll have a list of all the resolutions. I'm sure it has meeting minutes from last year's because I think we were one of the few that got, added to the list. So it was quite it was an experience. It was like 2 or 3 hours that go and you get to meet other people from the school districts. That's another thing is, I don't mind going again, but if anybody wants to volunteer for that as well, it's a good morning, I guess. But yeah, anyone else have anything to add to that? Do we know the deadline?
I don't know if their website is up yet still. It's been down for so long.
The policy part is not yet. It's like T-bones and whatever else has an effect from whatever's going on. But I know they're working on it.
Yeah, and we do have, I know we have copies and downloaded copies of the resolutions, so if anybody needs them from...
I think you can get to the resolutions. I just think it's the policy part.
Oh,
that
all right.
For some reason, I think there's some security stuff that I don't understand at all. Maybe Cliff does. But the resolutions you can get to.
The resolutions are available to anybody.
Joe has it here, and he will send it to all of you, so you'll have it.
The delicate assembly, that's what it is.
Remember, that's one of the reasons we have Joe.
So it still has last year's...
On the tech.
It still has last year's up. It was on October 1st, 2022, so I'd say, yeah, that was 20, yeah, so last year. So yeah, I would think about those, go visit those. I would say in the next few months, see if there's anything you guys want to bring to the table. And then if we do, then we'll take that up to Concord and see if anyone else will be on board.
And Jonathan, it's also a good idea to listen to the legislation because things change and that kind of drives what people want to see. So pay attention to what's going on from now to June in Concord with the legislature.
All right. Now we will move on to the facilities discussion. So I'm going to pass it over to Austin and Joe and Jane, and we'll get an update on where things are. I'm assuming we might hear a little bit about Gail, but I'll let you guys.
Yeah, we were going to ask Gail to come tonight, but she wasn't available. Symbol crash, please. I know. I used that one at the SAU leadership meeting today. It went over just as big. We did talk. We pulled up our document that we have with the all of the different committees, of which, of course, Joe's going to talk in a second about the first meeting of the curriculum group. And we revamped. We have like a little chart that shows a timeline of when we think things are going to start and different committees and so forth. So we talked about that again today and some of the decisions about Gale Associates. And I think Jane may have an update. Jane, are you going to do that in your report or?
It's in mine in the packet that I did, but
Okay.
we could do it now.
If you want her to do the Gale part now, the Gale Associates, she can do that. Let me just say that we did look at those. The committees that are coming up and tried to, revamp the timeline of when we think committees are going to start because we're waiting on things like the report from Gale Associates and so forth. So let me turn it over to Joe, who can talk about the curriculum, and then we'll go to Jane, who can talk about Gale Associates.
Okay, so just briefly, I think I had shared with the board at a previous meeting that the first real team that we tried to put together, made up of stakeholders, was a team to look at curriculum and instruction in a 5th and 6th grade school. We're really fortunate that we had a lot of parents, teachers, other staff members, administrators, school board members commit to spending some time together. So we had our first session last Thursday on May, I want to say that was the 4th, May the 4th. It was Star Wars Day. And we had about just under 2 hours. We had a little over 40 people present. And we did a number of activities, took a lot of notes. Kim and I are in the process of kind of working through all of that information so that we can share it back out with the team. Our next meeting with that same group is on May 18th. Which is a week from this Thursday. It is we're gonna break up a little bit because with 40 to 50 people in a room, it can sometimes be tough for people to find a place to have a voice and to talk about all the things that they want to talk about. So what we decided to do was we're going to spend the first hour next Thursday with faculty members, so allowing staff members to really share some of their concerns, thoughts, feelings, questions about the process, really focused around curriculum and instruction, and then have family members, parents, guardians do the second hour. So that's sort of an attempt to really give people more of a spotlight on specific issues. We're still going to come back together as a whole group in our third meeting, which is scheduled for June 1st. And then I've asked people to set aside some time in the summer should we need some additional time. Kim and I are in the process of planning out what that's going to look like. But so far, lots of engagement, lots of really great ideas. I would say some consensus building around some ideas that seem to be incredibly common trends. And we look forward to continuing the work. Thank you to Kearney and Brenda for both participating in that. We know you all can't be there, then it becomes an official meeting and we can't do that, but we recognize that, small groups of you joining and participating is important.
Thank you for hosting it as well. I thought you did a fantastic job and I enjoyed it a lot, so thank you.
I was going to say, I was going to ask Brenda or Karen if you guys have anything you guys want to add to what Joe said, but I guess now I'll just leave it to Brenda.
Okay, so Gail will be doing a full presentation to the board, but we wanted to give a little summary. So if anybody has the packet that I put together under attachment D, we did insert some pictures of the investigative work that Gail did. They did test cuts at all 3 schools, Derry Village, South Range, and West Running Brook. They did believe they had the drone out yesterday for West Running Brook to look at the building envelope here. And I apologize, I don't have the pictures up there, but it is in the packet for anybody at home that wants to reference to it. But we took pictures at Derry Village. You can see the first cuts there and just some pictures of the work that was being done. We do have a picture, I just have one of the West Running Brook building envelope where they made cuts into this building. They will have pictures in their full presentation. This was really just a preview for you. And then you can see the South Range pictures where they were cutting into the building and taking tests and samples. So we were very lucky. We were nervous the week before school vacation because it anticipated rain each day. And we were very fortunate that it held off in order for them to complete their work at all 3 schools. And I know they've had communications with Jeremy, and we'll be waiting for them to see when they can do the presentation for the full board. So you'll have a full presentation with much more pictures than I put in there. But I just figured as we move along, it might be helpful just to see. Austin and I went out to all 3 locations as they were doing the work, and it was actually quite fascinating to have them describe what they were doing and things that they were finding. So, and Rob Spirito and Jeremy also worked with them for the days that they were here.
Excellent.
And Jane, did you say we were going to have a 1 once that comes in, have a facilities subcommittee meeting, and then bring it to the board.
Yes, I think that's what we'd like to do is bring it to the facilities committee just so that 3 of the board members would be able to speak to the report before it comes to the board.
So they didn't give an estimated time frame when they could do that presentation? Because, we got May 23rd, which I'm sure is not feasible, 2 weeks out. So June, the 1st of June, meeting in June would make sense to me. Can we kind of push them along to that date?
Yes, we're working on having it at the beginning of June. We're hoping that that's when we be able to get it. I can talk to their rep tomorrow.
We lost a week on the drone, right? Because of they couldn't do it last week or something.
Right, they were supposed to do the drone last week, and Jeremy explained to me that there had to be a certain amount of wind and all kinds of other good conditions going on, and that wasn't met last week, so they didn't come till yesterday for that.
Anything else? All right. I did want to also, I know one of our goals is deciding which school we will end up closing. And so I know we have 5 elementary schools. And so one of the things that I know we've heard about, or there's been speculation, is the interest potentially in the town utilizing Grinnell. So I talked to Will Phillips first, and then talked to Dave Karen and asked if there was any actual interest in potentially the town using Grinnell. And he couldn't say one way or the other, obviously, as a town administrator, as he works for the town council, which I'm assuming very similar to what Austin would probably say. But he said there would be a process that it would go through where they might need to get organizations together, where if they were going to put together some sort of bid, there's that potential. So the other thing Will said is just have this conversation with the board, and that's what I'm doing, just passing that information along. I guess there was a discussion about, or not discussion, but there was a piece that was brought up about potentially, maybe not buying it, but leasing it. And so that's another thing that, I didn't have the opportunity to talk to Dave about. But if that is an opportunity, then I think it's something that, obviously we have to explore all different avenues. For those in the public, I am not saying I want to close Grinnell. I'm just saying it's something that, we need to consider if there would be an investment that, the town would make in either purchasing or leasing. So I'm going to throw this out to the group. Would we be interested in having a discussion with the town on a more formalized basis to, gain their interest? And even if it's possible, would that help us make a decision? I personally think it would help us make a decision because, again, we need to explore every different avenue. But just wanted to get the input from you guys before we try to potentially, if we were to explore that opportunity or situation any further.
I'm a no.
The one thing I would add or ask is just timing. I mean, we've kind of talked about it. Previous boards have discussed the potential closing. We're at the point now where we are going to close the school. I think what we need to be focused on is once the study comes back as to what school, and make a decision and have a timing as to when we're going to vote as to what school. I think based on what you said, I agree we need to explore, but explore to the extent of, is it 3 months? Is it 6 months? Are we kind of prolonging and now putting the administration sort of in a position where they're trying to, fix the engine while we're flying the plane, and they're trying to figure out what the plan is? I think we've got the goals. We need to kind of set a date as to when we want to make a decision pending the report coming back and understanding, and then allowing the administration to execute the plan that they're kind of on the path that they're already on. If it's something that they think they can make a decision fairly quickly, it might make sense to explore. But to me, based on this conversation now, it seems like it'd be a little more drawn out than what we would have an appetite for, at least personally.
Yeah, I agree. This doesn't sound like something that is imminent. And I mean, these guys need a decision on which school it's going to be sooner than later. And this doesn't sound like something that is going to be decided on anytime soon, if it's something that they would be interested in at all. And I think, for us in terms of, which school it's going to be, a deal for Grinnell would have to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of right there with everyone else where I worry about getting bogged down and not having a decision on just which direction we're going to go. And if this was something that I think we could go in and have a couple of meetings on and get an answer on, then maybe I would think differently. But I think that this would end up being drawn out to just draw out the whole process all in all. And I worry that that will be more unproductive than the productive information we get from it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that this this decision that we made isn't something that came out of the blue 2 weeks ago, and the issue with Grinnell has been kind of put before us as a teaser. That's my characterization of it, as a teaser, yes and no, but with no substantial or definitive offers, plans, or anything else. And ordinarily, I would say, whatever information we can get up front before we make a decision, we should definitely do it. But I think that, like Jason said, it's time to fish or cut bait. That's the way it goes. You can't. We've enjoyed as much of this as we can stand.
I completely agree with you on that because normally I'm someone who wants all of the information. I just don't think it's the most productive option now.
Brendan, sorry, I don't know if you have
Okay, because I'm a no, right? I'm a no for the whole thing. I'm going to take us back to the plan. The plan was floated in 2017, and it was a big no. It came back because the superintendent was told it wasn't his choice, and he's made that clear that it's not the best educational process for our children. He did it because he was directed to do it. Are we going to do something that is not recommended by the educational leader in our district? We're going to move forward with that still, or are we going to listen to him in his original plan to not do that, not to go forward with this whole plan? And my other question is, do we know what the real cost is to do this? Do we know what the real cost is to move students into 5, 6, 7, 8? Do we know what the real construction cost is to make all those changes? Do we know what the cost is to move the deep students to Barca? And do we know that parents are going to drive all the way to Barca with their 3 and 4-year-olds when they now are in the middle of town? Makes a big difference when you have a 3-year-old falling asleep in your car. There's a lot of other things to consider. Do we know what the cost is to have all of our teachers certified in the right grade to be able to teach in those? There's way more things to consider than just closing a school. We have children that we're responsible for. And again, our educational leader did not say this was the best idea. It was the idea that he had to come up with. And in 2017, we said no.
Yeah, so I'm not going to rehash the last few years. Yeah, this conversation was more about, if Grinnell were potentially being the school that we did close, if the town is interested, or are they interested now before, and does that help us make our decision? It seems like that's not, going to help us inform our decision. If it ends up that Grinnell is the school that we do decide to close, I think there might be some interest where we could have those conversations with the town at that point. But again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like our decision is not going to be dictated based off of the town's interest in that school. To your questions, I would actually pivot to the administration, and I hope those questions get answered. I think they need to be answered because we do need to be making sure. And I will reiterate what I heard from Austin over the last few months, which is the students will continue to get the same level of education, if not have an improvement based off of this reconfiguration, and it will also give our district the ability to use the funds that we are currently using to keep a school with many issues that we will have to pay for. It will give us the flexibility to use that money in more feasible ways as well. So,
but if you close Grinnell, I assume you're referring to South Range and Derry Village, which have been, not by me, but labeled as the schools that have the most issues structurally. So if you're going to close Grinnell, where does that leave us with the 2 structural schools that need to be repaired? I don't really want to go down this road because we'll be here till midnight. But what I'm saying is 2017, you were part of those discussions, and were very vocal about it. Just saying. The only thing that's changed is that we're looking to save money, and I don't have a problem with saving money. I'm a taxpayer here. I don't have children in school, but I care deeply about the kids. Not that you guys don't. I don't think it's a good decision, and again, a board before here said no, and Austin has not said this is the best educational process for our kids. It's what he was told to do. The schools that we're comparing ourselves to are not like us. They're small towns. We have 5 schools.
So Brenda,
but I don't. This is not a good road to get on right now.
you're right. Yeah, actually, that's a great point. Not a great road to go down. We as a board act cohesively as a group, and we as a board voted on this path. And so,
It was a no. So I don't agree with it. I agree with the board moving forward as a board, and I'll make decisions about that for myself.
yeah, there's a time and a place. This is not the time nor the place. And as a board, we are all in favor of this, and there's been no motion to change that. And I will continue to say that until there is a motion that has changed that. So, as board members,
So wait a minute. So I'm not allowed to give my opinion? Because you asked for an opinion, so I gave it to you. And I also have other concerns which go to facilities, which is what we're talking about.
So if I can just interject, I'd like to get back to the question of the town. So you're right. We need decisions. We've been saying that. We've been asking for that. I've also been asking to talk to the town for probably 6 or 7 or 8 months. So you're right. It's May now, but we still haven't talked to the town. So a little bit of frustration on my part. I believe in communication. I believe in having a spending an hour or 2 and having a communication and finding out, okay, that's not going to work. Or that it is a lease option and we bring it, people who meet with them bring it back, and this board says, yeah, we're not prepared to do it. But we're talking about having a conversation. And for some reason, we've been putting that off for a good long while, and we're guessing what the town may want to do or may not want to do. So, again, it's okay if you don't want. I have no problem spending a couple of hours and having a meeting and discussing so that we can come back to this board and say, town will not pay for one of our schools. They believe we are one budget, and therefore it's all going to come out and so forth and so on, and then we know. Or there is a lease option that might work for us 3 years down the road. So all I'm saying is, all I've wanted to do for a number of months is sit at the table with the town, have some communication, find out, because we're assuming a lot, because I've had little conversations, one conversation with Dave, Karen, Bev, conversation with Bev this morning after Derry Village Rotary. So that's all I was saying. Again, whatever the school board decides, trust me, if you decide not to have this communication, I won't bring it up again, I promise you. I promise you I will not. I will move on. That was the only piece. I understand where everybody is coming from. I'm not saying that we're not going to close a school. I'm not saying we're not going to move forward with what the decision is. We need to wait on the envelope and find out information on the 3 buildings that were that the work was done on. So that's all I've been saying. Enough said.
Can I ask one thing? So if hypothetically, right, if we were to have the conversation and we say to Joe, we're delaying it 90 days or 6 months, what does that do against the 18-month plan overall, right? How far does that set you guys back as it relates to the plan that's already in motion based on what was voted upon by the previous board to go forward with this plan? Right, because I'm in agreement with when you said it before, Jonathan, open to the conversation. I think it makes sense to have due diligence and explore every option, but at what cost, right? So does the 18-month plan now become a 24-month plan, and the cycle starts again, and here we are 6 months, 12 months down the line, still talking about what ifs and maybes and not taking any action against what we've said we were going to do? Does that make sense? So I guess the question is to Joe, and the administration as a whole, what if it's another 90 days until we can get a firm yes or a no answer? Because realistically, we need to have a yes or a no answer. Paul said it best, fish or cut bait. There is either is interest or there is not interest. What kind of timeline, or how does that now push the timeline out and change things? The goalpost moves yet again, and where do you guys stand at that point?
So I guess the simplest and maybe most vague answer is I think within reason, anything is possible along any timeline as long as you're willing to suffer the trade-offs and consequences of rushed work. I think a decision like this needs and should value the input of stakeholders. So we've done some good work with curriculum. We can actually do that work regardless of what school is decided to close. However, the next series of dominoes that need to fall are around neighborhood redistricting. Families, we have an obligation to do that carefully and thoughtfully and allow that process to be transparent so families can understand what the neighborhood boundaries might look like. And we also have to do a lot of work with staffing. So once we understand the size and the locations of the remaining schools, we need to then staff them appropriately. And teachers and all staff members deserve to know where they work, and they need to have an opportunity to adjust to that. So is it possible to delay 90 days? I want to make sure I say this carefully. Yes, with great consequences to the people that work in the district and the families and the community. On that sort of line of thinking, what I think I heard a couple of you guys say is it possible that you move forward with your process and talk to the town about Grinnell, because it's possible that both things could happen. And so I'm not saying delay your process to try to answer your point clearly, Jason.
It does, and I think the biggest point that I take away from that, Joe, is that we have a duty to staff, families, parents, students to kind of lay out that plan and give everybody the notice that they deserve and need based on school changes or place of employment. I mean, building, facility. I think it's important. The decision was made to go with this plan. I think we as a board need to make a decision sooner rather than later and go down that path with the plan and allow you all the room and the flexibility to breathe and make the right decisions that you see best fit to go along with the plan, and have the time that you need to get input, gather input, have those discussions, have those conversations, and collect all that information to make the best decisions possible and not doing it on the fly. It's a big deal for everybody, right? For everybody in the room, everybody in the town, it's a big deal. and it can't be something that's done nilly-willy and we're just kind of throwing things together and hoping something sticks and hoping something works, because to Brenda's point, who ends up suffering ultimately are the students, right? And we're here for the students. So if we can have a good plan in place that's well thought out, that's well executed, that puts the students in the best position to be successful. And ultimately, that's why we're all here, right? I think that's what it comes down to. And the curriculum piece, I think we have a great opportunity to look at curriculum and make the improvements that we want and need and that the kids need, right? I think this is the opportunity that we have to level set and put things on the right path for years to come. But we can't be flip-flop back and forth, yes, no, maybe so, and have conjecture, and maybe it was this and maybe it was that. We've made a decision. The previous board made a decision. We need to execute at this point and allow you all the opportunity to act on the plan and to do it the best way possible.
Agreed. So with that, I did not hear, I know Austin had said, hey, do we still have an opportunity to chat with the town? So I guess my last question would be, if in the next couple weeks the town reaches out to have a meeting with Austin and or Joe or whomever from the administration, I guess, is anyone in favor with, I guess, me and David going and attending that meeting and listening to what the town has to say? Or
I feel
do
like
we
as
not?
long as it doesn't affect that timeline, then yeah, have the conversation, absolutely get the information and be able to have those conversations. But it's that timeline that I really worry about getting pushed out again. And so if you can have it simultaneously, then yes.
Yeah, I would say if you're going to have the conversation, have it sooner than later. And if it's something that doesn't work within what we're looking to do, then, that's it. I mean, this thing about Grinnell, I've heard rumors about for a long time. And this conversation has still not been had with the town.
Oh,
And,
give them an
I understand
initiative
it's
to
a
actually
new-
set up the meeting. I don't mean to
it's a new council. Like, there's obviously a lot of turnover. We want to gauge, what the interest is, considering that it is a new council. But yeah, I mean, the fact that we're still having this conversation is kind of ridiculous. Like, with the town, we need to, if it's even something that's a possibility, we need to, sit down with the town. But it's got to be a yes or no, and move on.
All right. Well, I've got two people's input. I guess, Austin, if
I'm fine. If you want to sit down with the town, I have no problem if you want to do that. I have my own thoughts on that, but I'm happy to sit down with anybody and talk to them about anything. It's not a waste of time, and maybe it would just put it to bed. Maybe it will be real. I don't know. So, want to have a conversation? It's totally fine.
Yeah. So I guess that kind of leads me to my last point on facilities, I guess, is so as we are getting closer, and I've heard multiple people say sooner rather than later we need to make a decision. I guess I will ask kind of the administration kind of bluntly, when do we need to have that decision to close a school in order for you guys to start enacting your plan and be as successful as possible? Yeah.
So again, if we talk to the town and they say lease and we believe it's going to be dragged out, we say no. It's as simple as that. If it's going to be that we decide that this is going to take a number of months because it's going to be a process, then at least we know. But we find out yes or no. I believe I know the answer to this already. Will they buy a building? And I'll be completely on. David, you're good when it comes to finance. That's what you do. For you to be there and listening and hearing what they're saying about lease agreements or whatever, you're going to understand that a lot better than I'm going to understand it, because that's your end of the business. And then you can help to let the school board know and so forth. Yeah, well, this has potential down the road, or no, I don't think it's a good way to go. And I think that would be helpful once and for all, with the understanding that if it's going to bog things down, then you guys, we're not committing to anything. We're just hearing what they're suggesting. And if we don't like what we hear, or we don't think it's good for the schools or good for, the buildings or this, then you just say no. There's no having a conversation is not saying, well, now we've got to follow this. You don't have to do any. You guys will decide right here once information is brought back and say, okay, that doesn't, and it may just be, well, that's not a bad idea, but it's not going to work for us right now. That's all.
So do you have a date like that would, I think, to kind of piggyback on what Jonathan said, what would be a date that you would want to have us make a decision by?
Well,
on what facility? So we can, this can run in parallel. The Grinnell conversation with the town can run in parallel. But if we work on a date that you guys say, hey, it's July 1 or it's this date would be ideal for us to kind of continue on the path in this project the way we've set it out. So we can kind of work on getting our thoughts together as to what school. Obviously, the filter coming back is going to play into that. But I think if we have a date, just like we did with our goals. Here's a deadline. Here's something we want to work towards, understanding that it can flex if something comes up or.
And I think our thought process was that we talked to the town prior to getting the envelope information. We get that envelope information. You guys will realistically need a little bit of time, just because if we get it right before the June 6th, you may not be prepared to make a decision on June 6th, because my guess is I don't know what the report is going to look like, but I would guess there would be some time to absorb the information and, again, have the facilities committee meet with them with one of their reps so they can explain things and answer those questions. Then it comes to the school board with their reps here so that they can explain things and so forth. So, I don't want you guys feeling like you have to make a decision on, the hope was it was going to be the 23rd that we got the information so you could at least talk about that. I know they're still working on that. I don't know if they're going to make that, but it might take a meeting or two for you guys to make that decision. But I would not want the town situation to delay that. We were hoping that once we got this envelope information and you folks were able to digest that and make a decision on that, that's when we would move forward with where we're going, and we could start looking at other things like redistricting and facilities and so forth and so on. So I don't want to pin it down yet. I'd rather talk to the town, see what they've got, see what what we get with the envelope, and then I think we can come to a better decision depending on what the school board decides with the information from the town and the information from Gale Associates. I don't think it has to be June 6th or it's not going to work type of thing. There's some leeway there, because with the summertime outside of us here, there's not going to be as much, because we know people go away and they're not going to be available, and we've got some stuff planned for the fall because we figure people are going to be back here, and we don't want it to seem like we're doing a lot of stuff over the summer when we all know that, rightfully so. People take off, they go on vacations, they're not around. So we've got a little bit of time to deal with. And I think we can come up with a firmer date once we have information from the town and from Gale Associates.
So my thoughts were, I didn't even consider the vacation piece, which is a great point, because the decision like that you don't want to be making during school summer vacation when people are not here. My thought was the second meeting in June, which is June 23rd. That's my preference. If we get the information back in a timely manner, that makes sense to me. I know, nobody's gonna be. A lot of people aren't gonna be happy about it, and it's a lot, whatever. But the thing is, I think it's fair going into summer. People know which school is not going to be there, and they're not spending their summer wondering what's going to happen. It's just my last year at X school, and I think, and teachers as well, obviously. I think everyone's brought up the point. We need to notify people, give them a lot of notice, and I think this is the big one to give them notice on, especially going into the summer.
I would say we would, right now, if I had to throw out a date, I would agree with you that it would be nice that we've got 3 more meetings. By that third meeting, the second meeting in June, we have a decision, and then we could go into the summer getting started on, just like Joe and Kim and the curriculum group got things going prior to getting the people together because they gathered information by going to school visits and things like that. We could do some things over the summer as an admin group to prepare for the committees that are going to have more people involved come the fall.
All right. Yeah, I think end of June. The end of June is a good goal to shoot for. Obviously, can't plan for everything, but I think that's a good target date. And that gives us, the next 5-ish, 6 weeks, as well to again inform the public that that is going to be the target date for when we regrettably will have to announce which school is part of the closing of this reconfiguration. So again, stay tuned, but that I think is a good tentative date to consider. So yeah, with that, let's move on. Unless anyone else has anything to add to the facilities discussion?
In your timeline, guys, have you thought about the SAU bringing in a marketer, not a marketer, a real estate person? Have we thought about that process yet in your timeline when that would take place? Or
I'll defer to Jane. I don't know that we've talked specifically about bringing. The thought process with the SAU is we would be the last to move because as Brenda says, there's a lot involved with, fixing up the space for deep and so forth and so on. Those things would all have to happen if the SAU is still there during the parts of the fall, and the work is being done in a manner that wouldn't interrupt school and so forth in some way. We were thinking that the SAU would be the last because it's not important for us to be stationed in a school first thing when the school starts. So, but I do believe that no matter what happens, the SAU is my understanding is something that could be sold, and we're getting good response from Bev Donovan about, she's like she says she was, but she's not a real estate agent now, but knows of people that might be interested in the property, and evidently there's something potential with the property next door that would make that available.
I appreciate it. I was more thinking of the market analysis, not so much you guys moving. I was just curious, when do you go about bringing somebody in?
I'm pretty sure I asked about that several
you
months
did,
ago,
actually, yeah.
asking to have market if we had a current one, because I know we had one done.
Yeah, I know there was one
We don't have a
done.
current one. There's no reason a market analysis can't be done. Call a realtor. Someone who's a realtor, not promoting the town, and find
Right.
out what the value is. We don't get any say in other property around us. We get a say in what we own. That's all.
Right.
Right?
Okay. We will look into that.
Is there anything that you guys would need from the board from an approval standpoint to go get that market analysis?
Normally, Jane, you would, I'm going to let you jump in. Go ahead.
I guess it would matter what the process is on how we procure a realtor, and who do you decide who we use. But I'm sure there is a fee to it. When we did the market analysis for Floyd way back when, I think it was $2,500, but obviously that was a very long time ago. So I guess we just want some direction on how you want us to find somebody.
So would we put out wouldn't we put out an RFP for something like that? Because I don't know, do real estate agents respond to RFPs? Because that seems to be the thing that should be done with a lot of these things when we have an expense. I know $2,500 is not a lot, but like you said, that was what, 20-something years ago.
Yeah, I mean, we can also research realtors who specialize in. When they looked at ours before, when they looked at Floyd, it was very specific to realtors who deal in historical properties or old schools and old town properties. So we can do some research and bring some names forward.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Anything else on facilities? All right. We will move on. I think Joe is going to present the MOU between the Derry Cooperative School District and Next Charter School.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick second to thank you all for your continued support of Next Charter School. I know some of you were able to go over to the ceremony today and get a chance to see it firsthand, and that is certainly appreciated. And just a reminder that Next was born out of a desire from this board, although a past board, desire to build a place that would be really supportive and accepting of students that needed something different. And I really want to commend the work of this community to make that happen. So that's awesome. And it's related to this MOU. So for the new people, ever since Next has been established, we have had a memorandum of understanding between Next Charter School and the Derry School District. It was included in your packet. There are very, very few recommended proposed changes to this document from previous years. But just as a quick overview, especially for people in the public that might not understand the MOU process, this is a non-binding agreement, so it's not like a lease or anything. It is sort of a handshake understanding of the intent between the two organizations, but it's best practice to put it down in writing so both organizations have a clear understanding of how they interact with each other. So in this initial MOU, much of the bones of this initial MOU was drafted by the school district's attorney, and then was adopted by the next board of trustees. I almost said board of school. So each year when we make proposed changes to it, we send it to our attorneys. So this has gone through our attorney's office, the Derry Cooperative School District. These proposed changes are pretty minimal, but I can just quickly explain. In the area of special education, under New Hampshire state law, the district retains the responsibility to provide special education services to students in public charter schools. The district also retains some say over how they want to provide those services. So having had the experience in working at Next for 9 years, we actually worked with many school districts, not just Derry. And I can tell you that different school districts approach special education in charter schools differently. In the case of Next Charter School, the vast majority of students that attend Next, more than 90%, are from Derry. And Next's, the representation of students that have special education services of some type is disproportionately high, or it's roughly around 50% of the population. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's a substantial bulk of the students who actually attend Next have IEPs. Over the last several years, the way in which Next and Derry have worked that out is Next has hired staff members, and that includes some special education teachers and then some paraprofessional staff. That's primarily the hiring that happens at the Next Charter School level. They are employees of Next Charter School. Next oversees supervision. Next has to deal with all the HR stuff. However, the Derry School District reimburses Next for costs as long as, and that's what's spelled out in this MOU, those costs do not those costs are benchmarked at what the Derry School District would pay based on their collective bargaining agreements. So teachers in the Derry Cooperative School District are on a salary schedule. Teachers in Next Charter School are not on a salary schedule because they do not have a collective bargaining unit. However, and if Next Charter School hires a teacher at a salary rate, Derry will only reimburse Next for what that teacher would have made as an employee of the Derry Cooperative School District. So Derry is not held to whatever hiring standards, benefit structure that Next puts in place. It just so happens that a lot of the benefits that Next puts in place are very similar to the Derry Cooperative School District because we were born out of sort of the sort of same kind of incubation space. the things that have changed is the special education teacher. There is a limit that was set a few years back by Derry, which is based on Derry's collective bargaining agreement, that Derry would not reimburse above master's level step 6. That was in the previous agreement, but what the attorneys had recommended in the previous MOU was spell out that exact number in the MOU. And that number was in the last MOU, and it's in this MOU, but the number changed because the collective bargaining agreement for Derry, that salary number is slightly higher. So that's actually a footnote in this document. Quickly scrolling down to just make sure I could tell you the page. I think it's page 4. So that $54,850 mark is just the new number based on Derry's salary schedule. The other and I just to clarify, Next for paraprofessionals, Next's paraprofessionals are employees of Next. They are not part of the AFSCME collective bargaining unit, but Derry's reimbursement for those people again is subject to the AFSCME rules. So if a paraprofessional made X at Next Charter School, Derry would only agree to reimburse whatever that person would have been paid at the AFSCME salary schedule. Does that all make sense to everybody so far? I know this is a little bit, for some of the returning people, it's old news, but I want to be really transparent. The only other substantial change in this is for many years, we have said that Next would fund their own phone line and pay for it. A lot has changed in the 10 years of Next. There used to be analog or phone lines where we actually, Next Charter School has their own phone number. That number has not changed, 437-NEXT. However, our phone system in the Derry School Districts has changed to become voice over IP, and it now is fairly impossible for Next to have a standalone system outside of Derry's system. So instead, we just changed the language to say that Derry would bill Next, because there are, in fact, costs associated with every single device, and I think Cliff has kind of shared that with us. They're fairly low. I mean, we might be talking about $600 a year in cost in phone services, but that is, the intent was that Next would pay for it. It sort of became impossible for Next to go out and have their own phone agreement. So now we've just changed it to say Derry will bill Next for the cost of phone services. Sorry. I don't have any other substantive changes other than there were dates in there. And there's nothing else that is different, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you all have. One more thing, just because it could be a question. The Next Board of Trustees has reviewed it along with the Next administration. However, typically I think what happens is it's presented to this board. If you all vote and approve it and sign it, then it goes to the next board. They vote and approve and sign it. If you don't, or we can go back and forth just like, the House and the Senate and have committees of conference, but that's the process.
All right. Okay, David.
So in item 2 under tuition support, it says Next Charter School will solicit other sending towns to contribute funds beyond state adequacy. When you say solicit, does that mean you hope they pay you, or they?
So we have asked, and keep in mind there are 80 students at Next, and I'm not sitting and looking at their enrollment right now. There might be 7 that don't go to that aren't from Derry. We have in the past, and I assume the administration continues to reached out to those communities and sort of explained what we believe is the value added to those kiddos. Under state law, they're not required to contribute anything for tuition, so they don't. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. We have a unique situation in our community in that we don't operate a high school. We tuition our kids to an independent public academy. For those of you that don't know, for our students in Derry that choose to go to Next, we do not pay tuition to Pinkerton Academy. So the Derry School District has agreed to pay tuition to Next Charter School. Now, we have a part of this MOU that did not change this year is that Next's tuition amount would be two things, at or below the net cost of education at Pinkerton, and would never increase more than 4% over any given year. So currently it is both it's below the net cost of Pinkerton tuition for regular ed students, and it is, I think it was 4% over from last year. But if you're a community, and I feel nervous saying towns, if you're a community like Londonderry, for instance, Londonderry loses their state adequacy money for every student that comes to Next from Londonderry. It's just under $4,000. We're in a lawsuit right now with the state to say that $4,000 is not enough to educate a child. But Londonderry loses that $4,000. And it's hard for Londonderry to necessarily say that they can recoup that lost revenue by cutting services, because it's really hard to slice and dice your budget one kid at a time. You know, you've got to pay custodians and lights regardless, right? But we have also said, you know, this is many of the children that, if you think about it, and this is the way I think about it, children and families choose to come to Next because the current traditional system is not meeting their needs. And I believe that systems with failure is incredibly expensive, right? Aside from it being we have an ethical responsibility to do right by children. Systems that don't provide for people are incredibly expensive because we throw money at them to fix them. So I've tried to make that argument to other communities that until there is some incentive that they see directly benefiting them, they won't. And we also provide a preferential enrollment status for Derry residents, which we cannot provide for residents of other towns, and that's in the RSA. The RSA, the state law says the town in which the charter school resides may provide an absolute enrollment preference to students who live in that community, which basically means that we can accept Derry kids before we accept anybody else. We still have to accept other kids from other towns if we have space left over, which we do sometimes, but our waiting list typically at Next is 20 to 30 students for out of town, and historically almost 100% of students from Derry who want to come get in. Sometimes they apply mid-year and they don't because we're already full. I shouldn't say we, I said I wouldn't do that because they're already full. Sorry, I'm talking a bit much about this because it's an area of passion.
Any other questions or comments for Joe?
No question, but a comment. I had the privilege to attend the 10-year anniversary tonight, and blown away, I think, is the best way to describe kind of the experience. Just being in the building for less than an hour, just what's available to the students, and just I got a really overwhelming sense of community there. And I think with speaking to some individuals and some students, the passion, and Joe, you just mentioned passion, but just the sense of belonging. So really just an awesome job to the team over there and you in your past, right? But just wanted to thank them for having us come out tonight, and really it was a real treat to go see it. So thanks.
And Joe, it is we, because they are our kids. So it is we.
All right, we do need to have a motion to accept the MOU and the changes. So do I hear a motion on the floor? First by Brenda, second by Jason. We'll do all in favor. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Abstentions? None. Motion passes 7-0. And I think that means, Jane, you're up. Right?
I think there was adult ed.
That's after you.
Oh, no, I am next. I'm sorry.
I didn't mess that one
You
up.
were
did
right,
you?
and I was not. Okay, well, you probably saw in the board packet that we have a new format for financial board presentations, and that way you will have a sense of what we are accomplishing from board meeting to board meeting, and particularly not only in the finance department, but in the maintenance department, so that we'll always be keeping in the forefront what maintenance projects are being completed, so that when we have discussions about facilities, everybody's sort of familiar with where we're going. So, we're going to try to do this for every meeting, It obviously will be a lot smaller for some meetings. And I'm not going to read through all of them because they are in the board packet for people to read. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of things under finance, particularly with the program assurances. We had program assurances, equitable services, affirmation assurances, and general assurances. And those are basically what they say in the title. They are assurances for federal funds and general funds that we are going to comply with all federal laws that apply to our financial expenditures and revenue. So Kim Conant worked on all three of those assurances and made sure that we are in compliance that apply to each one of our federal projects, and she submitted them, and I think the last one was signed tonight by Jonathan, and all of them have been submitted to the state, so we're in compliance with that. We are scheduling the auditors to come and present the 2021-2022 district audit. So we are thinking that they will be, we originally were going to schedule them for the 23rd, but they have a conflict, so they will either be here on the 6th or the 20th. And they will present that. Next to my presentation were the pictures of the Gale project. We also included there some just thoughts to update you on some other facilities. I did speak with Jim Lucy from Honeywell last week, and they are still working on their presentation. They too would like to meet with the facilities committee prior to presenting at the board. And I know that we have sent out potential dates for that to happen. And within that presentation, you can see I'd like to highlight some of the larger cost items that aren't necessarily planned, they just sort of go. And one of them was at Barca, the booster pump system. I did put photos in there, and you can see on the before photo, it's quite an extensive pump system. And the new one, which is kind of funny, you'd think that the before was the small little tiny unit. So I had to really verify that those pictures were correct. And now, obviously, much more efficient unit. But those things that are not planned on, that one was a cost of $22,800. So I just want to continue to put the amount of work that's being done so that the board is fully aware of that. And all of the other items that are in there, Jeremy is... we've been doing this in a Google Doc for this presentation. Jeremy will continue to put all of his items, and then you'll see further down in the report under food service, Christina Lebelzik is writing in her report so that you can be updated. I will just highlight that our food service negative balance is back up to 32,000. We were heroically at 28,000, I don't know, just a couple weeks ago. Not only Patty, myself, our kitchen managers have been reaching out. Christina sends out an email reminder every Wednesday to parents who are at low balance and to parents who are in the negative balance. We did send out an email today to parents who owe over $100. That was 120 families that owe over $100 right now. And that goes from $100 to over $700. Asking that if they have not made a payment plan with us, to see if their children can bring in a meal so that they don't continue to incur costs at the district. So we just wanted to highlight, she wanted to highlight her program, and so she submitted some nice pictures of the healthy foods that we serve, which takes a lot of work for those staff. And we also wanted to acknowledge that on Friday, May 5th, it was National School Lunch Hero Day, and thank you to all of the schools who did an outstanding job recognizing those food service staff members. And Christina and myself and Tracy and Kathy Kennedy, we also went out on Thursday afternoon and decorated some of the kitchens. One of the kitchens that we had stopped in was South Range, and one of the teachers over there was with the students in the after-school program, and Christina had sent out some coloring pages where students could write in what they loved about their food service staff. And so South Range had colored them and wrote some really amazing things that they loved about their staff members. And when we happened to stop in the kitchen, the kids were all taping all of the colored notes to the inside the cafeteria, inside the kitchen. And they were so thrilled to do it. And I heard there were a lot of tears in the kitchen the next morning from the food service staff members. And when the students came through the lunch line on Friday, they were all trying to point theirs out and find theirs and ask the food service ladies, did you read mine? Did you see what I wrote about you? So it was really, it actually gives me goosebumps. It was so fun to watch the kids do that. And can't thank the food service staff enough and Christina Lebelzik. The next report that we included in there was a budget to actuals for revenue and expenditures. Just to highlight on some of our revenues, you may have noticed that under miscellaneous that there was a positive balance of over $482,000. That, if you remember, was the New Hampshire retirement surplus that the district received. Further down on that report, we also received $427,000 more in special education aid than was estimated. And if you went down to the bottom of the revenues, you might see where it says the unreserved fund balance of 4.7. That doesn't mean that that's what we have at this point is 4.7. That is what was used in tax rate setting back in October. So in order to make the budget balance to the expenditures, that's in there as the placeholder. So by the next board meeting, we will put a chart in here to estimate unreserved fund balance, and that will give you a better idea. As far as expenditures, you're seeing a surplus in salaries and benefits. Remember, we've had a tough time filling a lot of positions, so that's why you're going to see a surplus in the salary and benefits. And we also haven't paid out some of the benefits, so longevity, things like that haven't been paid out. But and you could see in the expenditure report where we may have some expenditures that are surplus. Pinkerton Academy received the last of their large bills for general ed tuition, and there's a surplus there of $799,000. Pinkerton Special Education has a surplus right now of 1.1, but you can also see further down on the expense report that out-of-district tuition has been overspent. So, and part of that could be due to high school students that are outplaced instead of going to Pinkerton, things like that. So further down, so right now we have unspent expenditures of 1.9. Each week, just so you can see that encumbrance column, those are funds that we believe we're going to expend, and that's really adjusted every week. Purchase orders open, purchase orders close, and this way you guys will have a clear idea of where we stand as we move forward to the end of the fiscal year. The next financial report that's in there is the federal grants budget balance. What I'd like to point out there is some of these are carryover from prior years, but if there was an expense or revenue or reporting in this fiscal year, that's why they're still on the list, because there was some type of activity. You can see that we do manage a lot of grants in there. Kim herself is the lucky winner of managing 13 of them. And then we do have special education grants that Laura is managing. And I have my 2 grants for ESSER 2, ESSER 3. What I'd like to highlight, because those are the ones that I know the best, if you would just draw your attention to ESSER 2 and 3, where it says the beginning column is the allocation amount. That's the amount that we were awarded from the state. Budgeted is how much we have written grants for, written activities for. So example in ESSER 3, where we have math interventionist or the guidance counselor, those are things that we've budgeted for. And then you could see what we've spent to date, the current, what we'd spent in prior years, what we've spent this year, how much has been encumbered, and the budget balance. Now, if you look at the ending budget balance for ESSER 3 of 1.5, that doesn't mean that's all we have left to spend. That means that's all we have left to spend of what we have written for projects or written for activities. So we do still have quite a bit of money left in ESSER 3, for example, and we know that we're going to be getting that report from Honeywell, which is why we're holding off on any other expenditures for the ESSER 3 project. But just want to clarify how that report is read and written. Any questions on any of those? I'm happy to answer ESSER ones in the future, and I'm sure that both Kim would be happy to answer hers, or Laura for her IDEA. The next financial report is a year-over-year activity comparison in the food service department. What I'd like to bring your attention to is the line where it says federal / state. And if you're going to compare that to prior year at this very same time, you're going to see that at the same time last year, we had received 1.7 million, and right now we received 562,000. That's that's a big difference, right? But remember, last year, those meals were being reimbursed by the federal government. We did not have paid meals, and because they were reimbursable and students didn't have to pay, what I'd like to say, massive shout out to the food service staff who every morning were setting up shop in the hallways, in the foyers, up in team areas, both here, West Running Brook, and in the elementary schools. So many kids were getting a meal at breakfast and lunch, which is why we have such a surplus in comparison to what we have now. Remember, we also had to report out what we're going to do with that surplus, and we had to do basically a spend down plan, which is what we're working on. Really nothing else stands out with food service, but that's the difference in those. The last report is from our district treasurer, and we really have two district accounts. They're a regular checking account and what we call a sweep account. So the money goes in, comes out overnight. That's where we're making all of that interest that I've talked about before, where we're making so much more in interest than we did before. And the school treasurer has to reconcile to the bank, and we reconcile to bank and treasurer. So we work together each month, making sure that we are all in balance. And the treasurer also put in some notes there. If you wonder why we're putting all these reports in here, not only I think is it great information for all of you, but our auditors are requiring us to put in these financial reports. And so we want to certainly make sure that we are in compliance. So any questions on any of those, I'm happy to answer now, or you can reach out to me later. Any questions now?
I have a question, but it's probably not really for you. Where did all those do we know where all those Pinkerton students went that we have a large surplus for? We used to get a report from them, withdrew, moved, whatever the case is. It would be good to know that. I'm glad that we have a surplus, but I also wonder where those children are.
Sure, and I don't have that, but thank you for bringing that up, Brenda, because I believe at one of the last meetings, I said that I would bring my spreadsheet for the ins and outs of Pinkerton, and I do have it, so I promise it will be in next month's report. You're very welcome. It doesn't say where they went. It just will show you at what grade level they left that we're in.
So can we ask them to bring back that report that we got? It just had, we didn't have names, but, grade 9 moved, grade 9 withdrew. They can't really withdraw legally now, but, where they're actually going. Are they moving? Are they going to another school? Are they going to a charter school? Are they homeschooled? Where are those children at this point? Because really our goal is to make sure that they're being educated, right, and they're safe. Thank you.
I'm guessing if they used to do it, Kathleen will know about it, but I'll find out.
So I do have a couple questions. Jane, this is great, by the way. This is an awesome report. So I took a good look at it this afternoon, and a couple things stood out to me, and it was really concerning, actually. Just to the Pinkerton discussion. So each year in the budget, we shrink that number. We tighten that number up, and you did a great job with the analysis work this past year. And so my worry is, there's, I don't know, what is it, 1.9 million, $2 million, right? $2 million. What concerns me is that number's going to go down. Clearly, we know it. We did that intentionally. That was on purpose. What's concerning to me is contract services. $556,000 projected to be over budget. That's a 43% increase. That's a lot. I mean, and then tuition out of district special ed is, $1 million over budget. That's 33% above budget, on top of a 6% increase we gave in the budget from the previous year. So I understand that a lot of this stuff is stuff we have to do, and I get all that, and I appreciate that, but I have a hard time wrapping my head around a 43% increase and a 33% increase, because that tells me we have clearly a lot of needs that we're working with. But I don't want to say this to sound crass, but that's a lot, and I can't imagine the math on that, the change that has to occur for the math to be the way it is. And I would like to see a breakout of, this is what we budgeted, this is what we projected. We had 12 kids in this program, 10 kids. We have that number already. I'd like to see where the numbers shifted to get us to the $1 million over budget, 556,000 over budget. I'm not trying to discount what you're saying. I need to visually see it for me to shut up about it, because if this continues and the Pinkerton numbers shrink, we got some problems here. That's an understatement of the century. And we already have problems already going into next budget cycle that we have to deal with. I shouldn't say problems, we have decisions to make that will make this process even more difficult. But if this stays hold in this upcoming budget cycle, I have real concerns, and I don't even want to think about it right now. But that's just kind of what I'm coming from. It'd be helpful to see, like I said, where we started the budget and where we end, and see what the shifts are that are causing this variance. And the discussion may be moot. It is what it is. I just need to see it to really be comfortable with that explanation. I'm not trying to say you're wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I just need to see it visually on a piece of paper, the changes that cause that kind of variance. Because if you add the 6% to the 33%, that's a 40% increase in 1 year. Then the 43% contracted services. So that's just my kind of thought on that. And
I can speak to contracted services. There's two major pieces that contribute to that. One is our inability to hire speech and language paths. So we have had, at Deep, it's been on contracted service providers. At East Derry, it's a contracted service provider, and here at West Running Brook, it's a contracted service provider. So that's a huge increase. We budget for the position. So if I can't fill the position, I still need to provide the services. We can, but then that becomes the flip side of, you can't budget for this if you have budgeting for this. Like, I can't budget for contracted services and positions because then I'm over budgeting. And then I'm asked to cut my budget to be more realistic to what is actually being provided.
You're a fair point, but if we know we're not going to if we know that we're going to use contracted positions, we should be realistic.
The intent is to hire those positions.
I get it. We haven't done it, though, in how many years?
It hasn't. It's been since COVID. Yeah. And going into this year, we've already hired 2 out of the 4. So we are constantly working at filling those positions. Unfortunately, I don't have the choice of not providing a service.
To look at it from my point of view, and just people who look at the stuff that aren't in this room. Fiscal advisory, they see this?
They've seen that before. But again,
to this kind of extent?
Again, if I can't fill a position, I still have to provide the service.
Understood.
So it has to come out of one line item to go to the other.
I get it.
So maybe it's a situation that when we talk about this next year, we have a conversation about the potential that we will not be able to fill all these positions, and see whether or not the board wants to, because it is a speculation, of course, but that's something we could bring. What's that?
And I can't put it in 2 places. So
I think it's also important to remember how deep enrollment is. Today, if someone turns 3, they can enroll in Deep. They're not planned for, but they can enroll and they get all the service, and rightly so. I'm not saying they shouldn't.
And move-ins to town,
But
we've had
they
a
afford
few.
services that maybe we don't know about, and we may not even have the personnel to. I mean, Deep's full. It's full.
Yep, and we also have contracted services at each of the charter schools that we need to provide as well. So for every student.
Can I just back up, because I'm not sure that our new people understand Deep. Deep is our preschool. When a child turns 3, no matter when in the school year it is, they can enroll in Deep. So it could be today, it could be a week from now, it could be the day before school ends. They still can enroll in Deep, and it's a good thing, because they need to be identified and get services. It starts, but we don't always know that they're coming, and it's a fluid enrollment.
Yeah, and the Deep staff works very hard to work with the daycares in the area, pediatricians. I mean, we put out the word for our child find responsibility, and work with early intervention, Head Start, all of those agencies for any student that is suspected of having a disability. At 2.9, we evaluate, and we're required by law, if they meet criteria, to provide services. So that's a constant, like Brenda said, it's constant throughout the year. Just to put some numbers to it, Kelly Fitch, who is the facilitator over there, last year, I believe it was 96 students that she evaluated, and this year, I believe she'll be over 100 by the end of the school year. And those are all potential new students that can be identified.
All right. Anyone else? I agree with David. I really appreciate this report. Thank you. I like this. Get some pictures, get some get some charts. Like, this is. I feel it helps me, because usually every Tuesday I'm like writing down these notes. Jane says food service. Jane says this, and I'm like, so this is helpful. Thank you. I hope we continue to get these. With that, I will pass it over to Austin to talk about the Education and Literacy Grant application.
Yes, which I hope you folks will vote in. This was prepared by Barry Jane Corey, who is our director, the Derry Center for Adult Studies. In summary, she says, under Title II of Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act of 2014, the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act is designed to help students with improving their education and employment outcomes, help adult students with improving their education and employment outcomes, become self-sufficient, support the educational development of their children, transition to post-secondary education and training, including through career pathways programs, and assist English language learners to acquire the skills needed to succeed in the 21st century economy. Purpose of the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act is to create a partnership among the federal government, states, and localities to provide, on a voluntary basis, adult education and literacy activities to support the above stated goals. The approved funding request of $69,936.50 for 2023-2024 school year will support these efforts for adult learners within the greater Derry area. This school year, we have 60 students, 28 enrolled in the adult basic education classes, primarily pursuing their high school equivalency, 32 in the English as a second language courses, and 5 students currently receiving individualized tutoring through our volunteer program. The program is comprised of the director, 3 instructional staff, 1 volunteer coordinator, and 32 volunteer tutors, of which 5 are currently active.
Questions, comments from anyone about the adult education? This is something that we will have to vote on. So if you have questions, ask now.
On the bottom of the adult education PDF that you sent, on the very bottom it says administration cost, and then percent of admin is 36%, and then like on a little side thing it says if greater than 5%, this will appear in red. Could you just clarify what that means for me?
Are you on the final page?
The very last page of the first document in the file here, the 11 adult education and literature. It's cut off actually. So.
I'm sorry, Kearney. What
Should be
page
on-
are you?
Should be on the bottom of page 4.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the very last.
Oh, maybe it's page 5 on your packet.
Right here. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. That is much bigger. I can't even see these numbers with my glasses on, for crying out loud. Okay. I apologize, Kearney. Give me that question again.
So I'm just
I don't
wondering
know
what
if I have the answer for you right now, but I'll try.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to get clarification on this 36% of admin, and it says on the side, if greater than 5%, it will appear in red. So why is that so much higher than 5%? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I don't have that answer for you, so I will get that for you. I know Barry Jane will have it.
I appreciate it.
So.
Well, I think I would prefer to have Barry Jane give you a direct answer, but I will say that in looking at the budget, adult ed is a really small show. So Barry Jane, the administrator, is largely one of the only employees. So all of the costs associated with her salaries and benefits are considered administrative. So it makes up 36% of the overall budget. In most organizational structures that are big, where you have lots of employees, you have a much smaller number of admin and then a bigger pool. So my guess is that it's a compliance sort of tool to say we want to flag this whenever you have an organization where more than 5% of the overall budget is administrative. Just want you guys to look at it carefully. I think because we're talking about such a small budget of less than $70,000 and one person's salary, which it truly is one person. So I think that's where it's at.
That's fair enough, and I appreciate that level of expectation.
How about we do this? We assume that's correct. We will get a clarification from Barry Jane, and if it is something different, we'll bring that back.
That sounds good. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Joe.
So does that mean we don't need to have a decision tonight and we should wait for that answer? Because I don't know. Me personally, I'm comfortable with moving forward without having that detailed explanation, but I don't know if everyone else is. Okay. With that, then is there any other questions, I guess? Or we can entertain a motion to accept the New Hampshire Adult Education request for proposal? I'll give the first to Brenda, second to Jason. All in favor? Aye. Nay? Hearing none. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
All right, and then you get to keep the microphone for personnel.
So I have 5 resignations. Heather Dubois, Grinnell Elementary School teacher. Allison Kissel, Derry Village Elementary School teacher. Jordan Stinson, West Runningbrook Middle School teacher. Dylan Pelletier, West Runningbrook Middle School counselor. And Mary Ellen Tagliatella, school district clerk. Now, please understand, she is still working as the administrative assistant in our human resource department for Kathy Kennedy. She is just resigning as the school district clerk. So I will move those 5 resignations forward with regret. Yeah. Yeah. Me too, when I first read it.
Do we have a motion to accept the resignations?
With regret.
First by Kearney, Second by Jason. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I'm happy to say I have 2 nominations. Miranda Mail, art teacher, East Derry Memorial Elementary School. Candace Porter, school counselor, West Running Brook Middle School.
Do I hear a motion to accept the
To accept.
First by Brenda,
Second.
second by Kearney. All in favor? All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. And all right, now you get the update.
Okay, after 3 straight weeks of cool, damp, and rainy weather with rain on 8 of the previous 10 weekends, did you realize that? This past weekend was beautiful. Welcome to May, spring flowers, and a chance for everyone to get outside and enjoy this time of year. I hope you enjoyed some time with family and friends in the sun and warmth, and here is to more of that in all of our futures. We are working on end-of-the-year activities at the Derry Cooperative School District while beginning to look at next school year. This Friday, May 12th, is kindergarten orientation. If you have a child who will be in kindergarten for the 2023-2024 school year, please make sure you have registered them so you can participate in our kindergarten orientation. Call the main office of your child's school to get further and specific information. I have specific information on the Derry Cooperative School District end-of-year dates to remember. Tuesday, June 6th. Well, first I do want to say I was at the next charter school 10th anniversary. So great to see so many people there. The original 2 directors, of course, were there, Joe and Justin, who created the program, and then many of the staff, some of whom have been there, a few of whom have been there for the whole 10 years. It's just great, and great to see that happen. Tuesday, June 6th, 6:30 p.m. at the school board meeting in the West Running Brook cafeteria, meaning right here, the Derry Cooperative District School District Retiree Celebration. Invitations went out to retirees, inviting them and their families, and we hope to see them all here on June 6th. Thursday, June 8th, 4 p.m. at the Adams Opera House, speaking of next charter school, will be the 10th graduation ceremony. Well, it wouldn't be the 10th, would it? It would be like the 7th. Yeah, they didn't graduate after 1 year. It's the 10th anniversary and 8th graduation ceremony at the. It's always a great event. I would suggest that people go there. You get to really hear the staff talk specifically about each of the students that are graduating, and it's well worth checking it out. Friday, June 9th, 6 p.m. at the Pinkerton Academy Memorial Field House. At the Pinkerton Academy Memorial Field is the Pinkerton Academy graduation ceremony. Thursday, June 15th is the last day of school. Oh, yeah, that went a little too small, didn't it, Joe? I got fat fingers. I don't know what to tell you. I'll get there. Hang on. Thursday, June 15th is the last day of school for our 8th graders, and both of the 8th grade promotion ceremonies will happen at the Pinkerton Academy Hackler Gymnasium. West Running Brook will be at 3:30 p.m., and Gilbert H. Hood will be at 6 p.m. The following day is the last day of school for our pre-K through 7th grade students. That is Friday, June 16th. It is also move-up day for those students as well, and it is an early release day, so students will be out 2 hours earlier than normal. We are looking ahead to next school year for all of our open positions. Director Kathy Kennedy and Human Resource Administrative Assistant Mary Ellen Tagliatella have an extensive list of currently open positions, which you can find on under the Human Resource tab on our district website, sau10.org. Please go there and check them out. May is Staff Appreciation Month, and last week was Staff Appreciation Week. Jane Samad mentioned about Friday celebrating our food service workers, and I've been visiting the schools, and they were, I always stop into the dining hall, not just to get a snack, but to actually check in with our ladies and see how they're doing. They were so appreciative of what the schools did to recognize what I remember to be the lunch ladies in my day. But all of our staff, I want to take a moment to re-emphasize that all our staff members, no matter what their role may be, are valued members of the Derry Cooperative School District. Yes, it took me almost my entire superintendent report to realize that if I didn't stick my mouth on the microphone, then maybe it would stop popping. Everyone contributes to the success of the organization and the achievement of our students. I have really loved visiting schools this year, interacting with all of our wonderful students, and having all sorts of discussions with our outstanding staff members throughout the buildings. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for what you do every day for our students, your colleagues, our families, and in this community. I hope you all know how much you are appreciated this month and every month. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Austin? Okay. Well, move on to FYIs. So in the attachments, you'll see a May 1st enrollment report. And we will move on to committees. So we'll start with the manifest. Looks like that's sitting with Kearney. You want to take a stab at it tonight? You have the folder. It's back to you. Take notes. Next board meeting, you're going to be on the hook.
It was his fault. He did it.
It's always my fault.
I move to approve the manifest in the amount of $12,952,657.29. Of that is general payroll of $3,864,117.62, and general expenses of $9,088,539.67.
First by David. Second by Paul. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. All right. Any other committees that have met recently that have any reports that they want to discuss? Ooh.
So we had our first meeting of the Legislative Liaison Committee last week. I think we would all agree that it went very well. You obviously have a diversity of opinions when you get all three groups together in one room, but we all agreed to find, whatever common ground exists and, do whatever we all can do in the best interest of the town. One thing that did come up is, I guess this has come up in past iterations of this committee from the state delegation in pushing our federal delegation for funding mandates that have been sent down from the federal government that are not being fully funded. And specifically speaking to special education, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the IDEA Act. It says in the act that special education is supposed to be funded by the federal government at a rate of 40%. Obviously, we all know that it is nowhere near that. It's closer to 10 to 15%. And we all discussed writing a letter to our federal delegation, asking that they continue to work on getting that full funding that was promised by the federal government for special education. Our delegation has been very good at that over the years. I mean, there is a bill that gets introduced every year to fully fund IDEA. It was the lead sponsors of the original bill 25 years ago were Judd Gregg and Charlie Bass, who are, New Hampshire. And every iteration of that bill since then has had somebody from our federal delegation attached to it as a sponsor or a co-sponsor. So, what we talked about is to draft a letter to basically, ask that they, continue that kind of support in seeking that funding. So what we wanted to go to everyone with is, would everyone be okay with us drafting a letter? Each of the 3 delegations from the Legislative Liaison Committee would sign on to it, and we would send it to our federal delegation.
I mean, I'm on board with that. That's not my decision to make. You guys are all looking at me like, I mean, I'm on board with that. The one question I have is knowing that that our federal delegates from New Hampshire are pushing for that, and it's not getting fixed at the federal level. Is there any idea that our state delegation would push to fund that at a state level versus doing it at a federal level? Is that a question that was posed?
Is very preliminary. We have funding in the budget that went to the Senate, right? Very preliminary. They have till June 7th or 9th to figure that out. And they let it, Representative Mills led us to believe that he thinks it's going to hold up, but we'll see. So that was encouraging news. I think it was close to $3 million a year that would help, increase funding for us. Obviously, it's a big deal, so we'll see. But he seemed pretty confident, but we'll see.
Yeah. They know where we stand on, funds that we need from the state, and this is somewhere where we could find some common ground.
Perfect. Great. Any other? So I guess, do we need to take a vote on whether we all agree? It seems like we're at a consensus, so let's do it.
Can we just see it before it goes out to Washington? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else from that committee meeting?
Yeah, we had transportation meeting last
Sorry, hold on.
Thursday.
Sorry, before we moved on to
I'm
another
sorry.
committee. Yeah. Do we have a next scheduled meeting for the legislative meeting? Quarterly. Okay.
So whatever that.
3 months.
It's the first June 8th, I think.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, every 3 months they commit.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now you can talk about transportation.
So we had a transportation committee meeting last week. I think it was Thursday. I forget what day. So the language is finalized, and I think at this point we should be seeing a final copy to the board at some point in the near future for us to review and approve or not approve. So I won't comment on it until you guys see it, because I think it's fair that you see it as it is, and if you have any questions, obviously, ask.
Do we know an estimated expected time of when we will get that final draft?
At the next board, I've scheduled it for the next board meeting.
Perfect. Thank you.
What I will say is I encourage everyone on this board to read it really closely, and I'd be curious to what your thoughts are. But definitely, it's only like 9 pages, so it's not bad. It's easy reading. I'm not saying you don't, but this is one that please do.
Okay. I'll just talk about it here. Committee, it's the election subcommittee. Both Austin and I attended was it last week? Yeah, it was last week. And so like Austin had alluded to, I don't think there's going to be any decisions made until maybe early fall, late summer. But there's been discussions about potentially using the schools, Pinkerton, Calvary. I think the town is deciding on how many polling locations to have for each of the different votes that we have. So there's the presidential elections that happen in November. There's the primary elections that happen. There are local town elections that happen as well, and we have 4 different districts. So a lot of variables. There is, I guess, some people on the town council, some people in the town asking for multiple polling locations, because I know the last few years we have only had 1 polling location. So just keep that in mind, I guess. Pay attention. That's all the information I really have, but it's going to be up to the town council to decide that. I don't think we have. There's been some collaboration, so we are willing to open the schools up as needed if that's a decision that they decide to make. I think, but yeah, I don't know if anyone has any other questions or comments about that.
Do we have an idea of when they'll come up with that decision?
Yeah, so I think they said like September-ish. Yeah, so I would assume sometime around there.
Appreciate it.
All right. We'll pass it on to delegates and individuals. So for those of you that are not here, we do not have probably, I don't think so, sorry. Yeah. So we don't have any citizens in the audience tonight, so we will bypass that. And then other business, just a couple things that came across. We might have been notified, but Patriots Pen. So last meeting we had the commander of the VFW, Isaac Miller, I believe his name is. He came by and we recognized a couple of students from Derry, which is really great. But the new prompts have been announced, and so October 31st is the deadline to get those in. And then I also wanted to just give my heartfelt appreciation to the staff and the teachers. I know that it's been Staff Appreciation Week. I know this week in some areas is Teacher Appreciation Week. So thank you to all of the staff and teachers and everyone in our schools that continues to provide safe and great learning experience for all of our students, whether that's in district, out of district, really just across everywhere. Educators are a special breed, and so just very thankful for them. But yeah, I don't have anything else. If anyone else wants to add any other business, not seeing any, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. First by Michael. Second by Kearney. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Have a great night, everyone.
He just gave you the full. I thought it was decided.
2 pages here.